Hi, I'm Neil at Italiaautos, and I think I've just made the biggest mistake of my life. I've just bought the UK's cheapest Porsche Boxster 718S. Now, there's going to be many reasons why this is going to be the cheapest Boxster in the UK, and mainly because it's a Category S accident damage car. Now, we're all guilty of doing this, looking at cars which are far out of our price range and then starting to lower our budget a little bit to what we can afford within the price range we've got. And this is what I've done here. So I'm now the proud owner of a very damaged, filled with tons of faults, a part repaired, well neglected Porsche Boxster S. So yeah, let's have a look at it. Now, I spent ages deliberating over whether I should buy this or not. The sensible side of me was saying, hell no, run away, don't buy this car. But the side of me which wants something that I can't afford decided that, nope, I need to have it. So I went down to what was pretty much Kent to buy it. Now, normally when I buy a car, it's normally pretty local to me, but this one was 185 miles away. So the logistics of getting down to it to view it wasn't easy, so I had to either decide whether I was going to buy it or not buy it over pictures, a few videos, a little bit of research via the registration. So yes, here we are now with the Porsche behind me. Now, I thought I had a fairly good idea of the damage from looking at all the photos, the videos, and you know, as with buying a car, you can't see everything. It was grainy footage, not the best quality videos, moving too fast, so had it on my computer, pausing it at certain points, comparing it to pictures I could find on the internet, watching other Porsche videos, trying to work out what was bent, how stuff was bent, how much stuff cost. So yeah, it was actually really difficult to decide that I was going to purchase this car. I mean, one of the big deliberations was, and one of the massive red cards was that it's already been partially repaired. So you don't know what damage has been there before, you don't know what damage has been found since. You don't know what is beyond repair. You don't know how much stuff's going to cost because all you can see is some body panels which have been slammed on top. They're not even bolted on correctly. So it was very risky buying this car from photos and videos. Now, for those that watch the channel know that I only ever really work on Alfa Romeos and Fiats and Abarths. So me deciding to work on a Porsche, it's a big choice for me because I don't know how they come apart, don't know how they come together, don't know how much parts cost, don't know what the regular faults are, don't know loads of things about it. Don't even know whether I've got the right machine to diagnose any faults on the ECU, let alone resetting the airbag faults or bleeding the brake system or anything like that. So it's going to be a massive learning curve for me doing this project. So I've rebuilt loads of cars over the years, but this is probably the most prestigious, and it's definitely by far the most expensive one I've ever bought for myself to work on. So it's going to be a good challenge ahead. But I'd got that itch and I needed to scratch it. You know, I'm a middle-aged man. I've got to have a Porsche at some point. So here we go. It's done. Now, someone had started to fix this car. They've done some suspension work to it. They've fitted a wing. They've fitted another side skirt. They've fitted a wing mirror, fitted a whole new complete door. Now, I honestly don't know the reason why somebody's given up repairing this. Is it because it was too difficult for them because they didn't have enough knowledge to repair it? Is it because they've come across a big fault with the engine or the gearbox and it's too expensive to repair? I just don't know. So this video series is purely about trying to fix this car and learning a whole new bunch of skills that hopefully you guys can watch and learn too. So after donning my Inspector Clouseau hat and being a keyboard warrior armed with a registration, I went to Google and I did a little bit of research and found that the vehicle was actually sold by Porsche 2 years ago. The new owner must have had it and he then must have crashed it a few months later, and the only thing I can find is a picture in a local news article with a picture of the car, clearly seeing the registration, and that's all the information I could actually find about it on Google. But I did a car vertical check. No, they're not sponsoring the video. but it actually gave me photos of when the car was at the Porsche dealer and it was in the for sale ad, so I could see what an absolutely mint car it was. Now, Porsche don't do things by half. This car would have been in amazing condition, fully serviced, looking great, but unfortunately now it's in a proper state. So after doing a little bit of Googling, I did manage to get my hands on 4 photos of the vehicle after it had had its accident and it was parked in a driveway. So here are the photos now. Let me know what you think of its condition there. I personally didn't think it was too bad. A really quite light accident. And showing all these photos with all these white panels on it, it actually makes it look a lot worse than in the accident photos. Now, that little part of me thought I'd come away with a bargain, you know, I was lovely and happy. He'd come back to bite me. As soon as we got it loaded on and we were on our way, I was like, yes, I've got myself a reasonable bargain there. I'm going to look forward to repairing this and can't wait to get back home. We just joined the M25 and bang, I got a little bit of a snaking on the trailer. It sorted itself out, thinking, oh, I've just gone down a pothole, it'll be fine. A few seconds later, people honking the horns, flashing at me. Looked in my rear view mirror and loads of tyre smoke coming up in the air. I'd actually had a blowout on the trailer. And the next thing was, I'm on the M25, it's a 4-lane motorway, there's no hard shoulder. What am I going to do? I'm not going to stop here, so I managed to get myself to the hard shoulder, which was probably about half a mile, 3/4 of a mile away from where this happened. So I was putting my pants there, driving along at 40 miles an hour. So eventually we got there. We had to wait an hour for the recovery truck, and then a further 3 hours for the AA guy. And then we had to go and find a tyre for it. So I think all in all, we were held up for about 6 hours. So we were hoping to get back early afternoon, took the car away in the unit, go out with my mate who came with me for a few beers. No, that didn't happen. We finally got home at 10 p.m. last night and we'd done 455 miles. I was absolutely cream crackered on the Sunday, and it was actually my birthday on the Sunday, so I didn't actually do anything for my birthday other than laze around all day and have a lie in bed. So I'm now all rested. We're back with the car. Let's go over it and have a look at what damage is actually on the car. Let's start at the front of the car and work our way back. The front bumper has loads of scrapes and damage. You can see it's all cut down there, and the worst bit being down in the corner here, so it can't be repaired. The wing has some dents on it in a few different spots, but I'm hoping that this wing can be repaired. This alloy wheel is buckled and really badly scraped. Massive dent here which needs pulling out. This is metal, I do believe, so we should be able to get this repaired without having to replace the quarter panel. Rear spoiler is chipped and has a big part missing from it. These are quite expensive to buy for what is a bit of plastic. The rear bumper has a scrape on it. The rear valance has been dented, and there's also a little bit of a deformation in the rear bumper. I can feel a lump there, so that's going to have to be warmed up and sorted out. The exhaust at the back is bent. The rear bumper isn't fitting correctly here. The rear wheel has loads of curbing on it. I'm hoping that it isn't buckled. The side skirt here is scraped and damaged in a couple of spots, but that should be able to be reused. There is damage here on this rear quarter panel. Don't know how it's happened, as the door here wasn't damaged. So it's lifted the quarter up that way. It's also pushed it that way, so this doesn't align here. This should be probably about 1 centimetre lower down, and the door gap needs pulling out. Fuel filler cap isn't on there because all the wings and all the front panels are all loose. There's a dink on the bonnet, if we can see it there. Now, I think the reason they crashed this car is because all the tyres are not that good, especially the rear tyres. This one isn't too bad, but the rest of them are shocking, and at £300 a tyre, they aren't cheap to replace. Now let's crack on with the interior. We're missing the door card, but that's all got to be stripped down and rebuilt. I do have a ton of parts here to go back on. Belt pretensioners have gone off both sides. There was only somebody in the driver's seat, but the passenger side has still gone off. We need to fit the airbag. Hopefully the loom is all okay. It does look okay. The rear view mirror is also loose. It was actually disconnected. I've just managed to get it on a little bit. All the wiring is disconnected. We're also missing the sun visors. Well, they've been removed. So I'm going to assume that it's had a new windscreen put in it. I can't see any obvious signs that it's a new one, but it doesn't say Porsche anywhere on it. It does say Pilkington in the corner, so at least it's a good quality screen. Now, another reason why I wanted this car is it's the S version. It's a 2.5 with 350 brake horsepower. And some might say, oh, it's a little bit less than the BMW M3 or a little bit less than the Giulia Quadrifoglio. But this weighs a couple of 100 kilos lighter, so it should, in theory, be just as quick. Especially being lighter, it should be just as good around those twisty corners. Now, I know the vehicle's got oil in it, but it's very difficult to actually check the oil level because there's no dipstick in these. You literally can't even see the engine. There's nowhere to actually see the engine behind you. So I'm going to start it. We know it's got oil in it. Let's have a listen to it and see what it sounds like. You ready? We've got loads of error messages on the dashboard, but we can get those sorted out. That sounds good. So let's talk about the positives now. The seat airbags haven't gone off. There's no dashboard airbag damage, because that is extremely expensive to replace. Pretty much all the parts I need to repair it are actually with the car. There's some suspension components which I already know about, which I need to get, but when we get it on the ramp I'll show you about those. Both headlights are still intact because they are like £2,000 each to replace, so I'm glad they're both okay. One of the reasons why I went for this car rather than waiting for something else was its spec. It's got the PDK gearbox, it's got the sports chrono package, it's got the tinted rear lights that I fitted the GTS at the back. It's got tons of stuff. It's got cooled seats, it's got climate control, it's got radar cruise control. So it's pretty much got most of the options I wanted out of a Porsche. The only two things it hasn't got, which I would have spec'd from new, would have been the sports seats, where you've got little winglets at the top of the seats. And I would have loved the leather pack, which would mean you've got a leather dashboard, top leathers to the door card, and the centre console was all in leather. That would have been a lovely option, but again, brand new. It's not a cheap option, so you only really see this on the GTS versions. Now, while it's all lined and ready to go up in the air, this wheel is bending in that way. So it's got some major suspension damage on that side. And another thing I've noticed is the wheels aren't straight. This one is pointing out, even though the steering wheel is straight. And this wheel is, I'd say, pretty much pointing in the correct direction. It may be towing in a little bit. Right, I can see a couple of reasons why this rear wheel isn't pointing in the right direction. This bar is bent, so that's going to be kicking it back. So you can see here, there's no bend. And a big massive bend here. Oh, okay, another reason why the wheel's turning in. If you look at that shocker up and down, try and work it out so you can see it, it's actually bent. Let's show you this one here. Nice and straight. This one is bent, so I'll bet you we're going to want a hub, because that's an aluminium hub and they bend really easily. We're going to want some rear anti-roll bar links, and I'm hoping that's about it. Hopefully this arm wouldn't have bent, but I can pretty much guarantee you that that hub is bent as well. And the expensive thing is it's got Porsche PASM, Porsche Active Suspension Management. So it's got one of the fancy Spandoogle shockers, which dampens differently depending on whether you push the button or not. So I bet they're going to be really expensive. Everything else on the passenger rear wheel looks okay. The thing I was worried about was the impact this exhaust had on the rear bumper. Has it touched the gearbox? Because the gearbox is right at the back of the engine. But from what I can tell, the exhaust has saved everything at the back. There's no fluid leaking, there's no sign of damage. I'm also looking on this skid plate at the bottom, making sure it's not dented in. I think there's a little tiny dent there, we're talking tiny. And a little bit of scraping along here. None of the nuts are overly covered in crap like mud, grass, things like that. So it doesn't appear as though this part has seen too much of the wrong side of some rocks. A little bit of damage at the jacking point here. You can see the chassis leg, not the chassis leg, the chassis, the jacking support point is a little bit bent over. A little bit of damage here, but that can be sorted out really easy. Looks like there was a fixing point here, that has now gone, so I'm going to have to weld a little stud on there so I can get the under tray back on it. Underneath the front of the car here, we've got, again, a little bit of rust, which, you know, for a 5-year-old car, I wouldn't expect that at all. But as I think this car's done a little bit of off-roading during the accident, I think this might have been scraped off, so it's fresh rust. So I will be cleaning all this up, don't you worry, and it will be gone. When I was speaking to the guy, he did say some coolant pipes are off it and it's not sort of pressurised for a cooling system to warm it up properly. And this will be why this connector isn't in at all. So I'm probably going to buy this whole new pipe just to eliminate any future leaks. So we can see underneath it, there's no actual dents here. There's just mud underneath it. So it has definitely been off-road when it crashed. A little bit of damage to this front part here, but that can be sorted out. There's nothing there I would be worried about at all. Underneath it here, we are missing a cooling pipe from what I could tell in the photos. We're missing a mount here, it's been ripped out. There's a coolant pipe missing here, but I actually have got that pipe in the spare parts. So I do believe it comes sort of along the upper chassis, plugs into somewhere down there. Yeah, I can see a pipe further along there. Let's get you in there so you can see it. Somewhere there anyway, but you can't see it, and it plugs into this one here. That isn't bent there, so we just need a couple of coolant pipes for it. And the biggest part I was worried about is there's a little bit of damage to the floor pan here, and I think this is why they said it was structural, because it has dented the sill a little bit and it's pushed the floor pan over. As all this area is metal, we should hopefully be able to pull all that back into shape, seal it all up again, and it will be good to go. Let's have a look under this arch now and see what damage there is. We need this coolant pipe, which I was saying earlier. This one also looks a little bit rusty. This shocker here looks okay. There's no visible damage that I can see on it, but we're not going to know until we sort out the damage at the back and we can drive it to be taken for a proper four-wheel alignment. So everything else in here looks okay. The brake discs still have plenty of life on them, as do the pads. There's some loose connections which I'm going to have to sort out where they go. I think they just go into each other there, so fingers crossed. That's just for that there. Nothing appears broken, nothing appears damaged, nothing's bent, so this arch is all good. This side there is another water leak down behind here, but you can't get in to see it, so I'm gonna have to put the clip on that as well. I mean, visually there's no damage that I can see to any of the radiators, and all the suspension looks perfectly fine, but we do have two hoses here which have been cut. I don't know where they're supposed to go. We've also got a few loose wires and stuff here which need sorting out. After watching a stupid amount of videos over the last 2 weeks, I do know that these fans are very susceptible to damage, and the front radiators, as you can see them there, are really susceptible to damage because you can just get big massive stones straight through the grills. Now I know that Zunsport do some grills which go in there, and hopefully I'm going to get some of those so that doesn't happen to this one. So I don't think the car is as bad as I thought it was going to be. My main concerns are that floor pan repair, the power steering doing what it's doing. We have a problem with the steering. I don't know whether it's just the resistance or a sensor's gone down or the actual motor itself has been damaged, but it does like to jump around in your hand. But the bonus is I do have another power steering rack at the worst case if it is that one. Now what's bugged me is, why has nobody bought this car sooner? Since I started looking at Porsches, or should I say dreaming about owning a Porsche, a few months ago, this was always listed as for sale on eBay as the cheapest one for sale of this age mileage. And I've always wondered, now it comes to it, when I bought it, why has nobody bought it a few months before? Now I've looked over the car. The only issues that bother me or would stop me from buying it now would be the fact that the car's got no brakes, but there's no visible brake damage or brake hose damage. I may have missed something, but I can't see anything underneath there. The power steering fault. The worst case scenario is the power steering rack has taken a hit and it's damaged the internals of it. That's why it's doing it. So I do have a spare down there that came with the car. So worst case scenario is I can fit that power steering rack to resolve the problem. But it's quite a big job. You've got to drop the subframe, but also you've got to support the fuel tank because the fuel tank's up there. And the third reason is the chassis damage, which you've seen already in the video. Now, those that watch the channel know I can weld and do everything we need to do, so that doesn't really bother me at all. It can all be pulled into position, but what does bother me a little bit is I've got to strip all the interior out to do it, and I've never done that before. So hopefully Porsche have thought about it logically, as the Germans do, and it comes out nice and easily. So there we go. Why do you guys think that this car wasn't snapped up sooner? You let me know in the comments below now, and I'll reply to you as fast as I can. And another factor to think of about why nobody bought it is what put me off is the massive red flag of the fact that somebody's already tried to repair this and obviously given up on it. It would have been much better and looked a lot better if you had these 4 photos to look at and you could see that the car actually wasn't that badly damaged. But on the photos of the eBay listing, you know, your imagination can run wild. There could be tons of damage under there that you can't see. I've taken a gamble on it and fingers crossed it's paid off. So guys, I bet the question you're all dying to know is how much did I pay for it? The vehicle was actually up for £25,000 on eBay and I ended up paying £23,250 for it. I think that's a pretty good buy going by the amount of damage I've seen on it. I've still got to price up a lot of the parts. The steering worries me on the cost of repairs on that, and the rear suspension work, that is what is going to cost the most, and also the alloy wheels for the rear. One of them is bent. If it can't be repaired, I know that's going to cost me 650 quid. So for the moment, it is looking as though it could be a really good buy. Hi there guys, we are back with the Boxster today. We're going to be working on it for a few hours to try and sort out the cooling system on it. But if you remember to the video last week, we found a whole host of faults on it, so I'm going to try and work through a couple of those hopefully in this episode as well today. If you remember back to the last episode, we were missing one pipe on the cooling system. This is the replacement pipe for it, so we're going to get this installed first. There was also tons of connectors on it which weren't plugged in correctly, so we're going to get all those resolved, fill it with coolant, and fingers crossed we can have a permanently running Porsche. So to start with, I need to access all the cooling system. I've got the wheels off already, but I'm going to remove this front bumper and the front wings just so I can see everything a little bit better, and it'll also enable you guys to see it as well. Things are rather tight down here, so I'm not sure whether I can wiggle this in without removing the subframe. I would have thought it would be a bit stupid to have to do that, so let's see if it'll go in as it is. We're part of the way in, but it doesn't seem to want to go any further. We're also pointing in the wrong direction, so let's have a look underneath. Right, we're almost there. In fact, we're there. There we go, look. So we just need to orientate that to the right way around and get it all in. I've managed to push this one clip on, that's gone on nice and tight, so now we need to move this clip over. Now let's see if this is big enough and strong enough to move this over. I hate these clips, I think they're absolutely horrible. Give me a Jubilee clip all day long. And with it being so cold today, the last thing I want to do is pinch my skin because it will hurt for hours. So I'm going to try and keep my fingers well out of the way. Oh, I do hate them, I do hate them. Let's try and make this a little bit easier. A bit of WD-40. To make things flow a little better. I think I'm going to change these for Jubilee clips. Look at that, how much easier is that? Well, I've got the power steering rack off and I've found out what the problem is. Are you ready for this? The actual rack has snapped here, so that would definitely explain why the steering was misbehaving. But I am ever so glad I've got a spare one because a used one is £1,800, so that's a little saving there. What a palaver that is. I've had to remove the main coolant pipe that runs along the front of the car just so I can get that to be clipped in. So fingers crossed, we're on the fixed route now and we can get it back in the car. The only thing I'm missing are 2 clips for down here, so I'm going to have to order some of those from the dealer. But that pipe work is all on now. Steering rack is all on. I do need to get some new clips for the headlight adjustment thingamabobs. To be honest, that wasn't actually too bad. Everything went on okay. Room was a little bit tight, but we got there with lowering the subframe. Steering rack, dead easy to do. It's literally sort of 15, 20 bolts, out it comes, in it goes again. So I think the best thing to do now is lower it down and get it on the floor. But the only thing I'm not going to be able to do is put some coolant in it today, because 2 of the clips here, they are missing, so I've had to order some of those from Porsche. So here we go, here's the big test. Let's see if this power steering works better now. I like it when you get an easy fix like that. Yeah, me like that. I'm happy. That is all sorted. I've got no steering errors either, which is quite nice. So what I need to do now is have a little play with the tracking. I don't do wheel alignment here, so I'm going to have to kind of do it by eye or use a tape measure or something, just to get it pointing straight. And then once it's all ready to go, we can get it to a proper 4-wheel alignment place and get it all sorted. So attacking this logically, the seatbelt's got to come off, so let's remove this clip down here first. And undo the nut. And then we'll move on to those plastic trims. Right, lift that up out of the way. There you go. All clipped in. The seatbelt goes through there. Okay, it just looks like that's held on with one nut. Where's the other nut for down there? Oh, there isn't one. It looks like it just swings round. Okay, should be fairly simple. There's a clip here to undo. Damn, that was easy. A little too easy, if you know what I mean. Right, she's going to swing around. Yep. Just leaving the seatbelt to undo down below. Right, if you can just see down there, there's one little bolt which I've got to undo, and then that seatbelt should come out. As I was saying in the other video about engineering of Porsche, they actually seem as though they ring true, as in everything's been easy to take apart. I mean, even that steering rack wasn't difficult to do. It was, what, probably about 2 hours work. Once you drop that subframe, you've got reasonable amounts of room to get everything in and out, so I'm happy with that. I never went to a company in the end to get them fixed, because I found these on eBay on auction and I didn't pay much for them. I think I've paid just over £100 for 2, so I was really chuffed with that. That was a really good buy. I can't for the life of me remember how I put that in there. That's me talking. Okay, that seems about right, and that plugs down in there. Let's get this done up. And then this goes on under here, which I've clipped back in. There we go, 2 seat belts in and done. That wasn't difficult at all. It took, what, 10 minutes each side. So 20 minutes, 2 blown seat belts repaired. So let's turn it on. I've got some new software called Launch, which I can plug into the Porsche, hopefully. It just so happens that I was sent it the other day for free to test out. So let's plug it in. It's supposed to do Porsche, so let's see how we get on with it. So here we go, this new bit of kit. I will do a proper review on it in a few weeks, but quality-wise it seems okay. Price-wise it seems quite cheap. Boot-up time could be a little bit quicker, but let's put the ignition key on. Ooh, fancy. Right, it has found the VIN. There's going to be loads of fault codes on the car because loads of stuff isn't connected. And like, you've got no door card on it, so there's no door switches on it. The wing mirror's all hanging down. I will tell you all about that in a minute. There's no airbag in it for another fault, which I shall tell you about in a minute. So it looks like that's done now, so let's have a look at the fault codes. It is really good that it automatically found the car. It found the chassis number, and it's connecting to it and reading the faults straight away. That's quite a good feature. And I'm impressed that it connected to this car so quickly. Okay, so airbag, we've got 4 codes, the main airbag, the driver's side I have reset with a different bit of software, so that's already gone. How do you reset them? So that's just the report. So it doesn't give me the option there to reset the codes. That's to send all the stuff to myself. It's included by email from when I've registered it. So, code assist. There's all the funds. So we've got a relay problem for the fan. Boost pressure, I've got to have a look at that because the wastegate can sometimes rust up, as I've read, so I can sort that one out. That just tells me what warning lights are on the dashboard. No communication with the steering wheel. That's because of another issue which I'll tell you about in a minute. Air conditioning, loads of those are because the AC pipes aren't connected and there's 2 sensors not connected. Parking brake assist, that's what I've got to look at. I don't know what's wrong with that entirely. Tyre pressure warning, there's loads of pressure in them, but it's still saying there's 4 faults. Porsche stability management control, PASM control unit faulty, memory content. Let's hopefully not that isn't faulty. Front electrics, yeah, they're all disconnected. Headlights, there's no headlights in there. And where's the airbag codes? Airbag, there we go. Clear code. Yep. And it's doing the health report all over again now. Okay, codes have all been reset. So the only ones that are left are the stage 1 and stage 2 airbag, which is probably related to the clock spring and the airbag itself. The driver's side door lock carrier airbag circuit. I don't know about that one, but when I strip the door down and rebuild it all, I can look at that one. So that's 2 fault codes gone, and as you've seen, I've got plenty to work through. There are 2 other faults which I found while trying to resolve other issues. One of them was all the wires were disconnected here, and the wing mirror was sort of loose. So I've gone to fit the correct plate with the forward-facing camera, and it's not the right windscreen for it. As you can see, the area for it to bond to is totally the wrong size. So unfortunately, more money, it's got the wrong windscreen fitted to it. I have made a phone call to get another one fitted. The only place they can get one from with the correct satin area to bond it to is Porsche. So a new windscreen fitted is going to cost me £800. And another fault was this was disconnected here from the board. It had sort of blown off in the accident. So I took the steering wheel off. I've soldered it all back on, but it has lost a pad from what I'm hoping is an earth. But at the moment, everything on the steering wheel is dead. So I'm assuming the clock spring behind here has also blown, as being as it's given me 2 airbag fault codes rather than just the main airbag. So I've had to order another clock spring for it, so yes, more expense unfortunately. The clock spring was just under 300 quid, so the extra costs are starting to mount up. I have ordered some other parts for it. I've ordered the rear shocker, and I've ordered the air conditioning parts, 2 indicators, and some clips and stuff like that. So they should be here in a couple of days. So once they've arrived and I've got the receipt telling me how much everything was, I'll do a total of costs I've spent so far. But at the minute, I have spent quite a bit of money on it, which, you know, I expected to do it anyway. But at the minute, it's £1,300 near enough of extra parts I didn't think I'd have to buy. The most expensive one being the front windscreen. Hi there guys, Neil at italiaautos here. Welcome back to another video on the channel. We have the Porsche again behind me, and I'm going to be completing several more jobs on it. One of them being changing the air filter. So as you can see, you have to take a lot of bits off just to get to it. So what I've had to do to get to it is remove all the gubbins at the back here. I've had to remove these from the car so I can then lift up the rear screen, which will then give me access to the air filter. As you can see, this is the one that was on the car, and it was rather filthy. So I've ordered another one of those, so that's another expense. But it's a service item, so that's expected. And inside the air filter box, there is so much stuff in there. So it's a good job I am changing the air filter on that, because it's rather riffy. The first lot of parts have now arrived for the Boxster. Let's get them open and see what's arrived and how much it has cost me. So the first part out of the box is one of the AC pipes. The second part is the part which goes under the wing. Well, there we go, and that part costs £300. Next part, we have the rear arm to replace, which was bent at the back. That wasn't too bad. This was only about £100. I will go through the prices at the end of the video. We've got some clips for the coolant pipes. The all-important shocker, which wasn't actually that expensive. Brand new rear spoiler. Now this was stupidly expensive considering how much it was. I think this was £255. 2 indicators in here. Oh, it's the hook, yes. Now, judging by how lightweight this is 100% going to be bent, so I am better off just fitting a new one rather than faffing around with fitting it and then realising it's still bent. But yeah, this was the most expensive part. This was about 300 quid, and you can see why. It's a proper machined bit of kit. So as I've finished all the work I need to do on customers' cars today, I'm going to tackle the AC pipes. And looking at it, it connects over here, runs down under the wing and then underneath the car. But in order to get it out, I need to take the wiper motor off. So from what I can tell, take the arms off. There's one fix in here, there's one fix in here, and there's bound to be another one somewhere. Yeah, there's one over here as well. One of the best tools in the workshop this is. It saves you a lot of hassle trying to remove wiper arms, because they are normally stuck within an inch of their life. And of course this one doesn't want to come off either. Baby, you give me ice and fire. You're giving me wind and rain. You're some kind of butterfly. Baby, you give me midnight. You whip up my appetite. Don't leave me here high and dry. Oh, I don't wanna jinx it, baby. So now we have decent access to the rest of the pipe. We just need to undo that 10mm down there. Well, that was a very tight fit. That took some fiddling to get it out, so it's going to be even harder to get the rest of that in because there's no cut pipe work on that one. So here we go, let's try and get it in. Oopsie, forgot to hit record on that, so it's now in. Everything just needs buttoning up. And we should be good to put everything back together. So there we go, all the pipe work is all on. I've put the wiper motor on, I've still got to put the arms on. But everything is all in and connected up. I think I'm missing a bracket or something for here. So I need to work out where that goes because I don't have a clue. But judging by the rest of the pipe work and the way they flow, it's some sort of mount which goes here. Right, I'm just under the car now working on this dent. And now if you remember how bad it was there, I'll show you a few videos of it now. But what it is, the floor is actually aluminium, so I've been working it out, heating it up, pulling it all into the right shape. And unfortunately, there are a few little holes, so I will have to purchase or get my body shop to do a little bit of TIG welding underneath there. But as you can see, most of the dent is almost gone. So I've just removed the steering wheel and now I'm just removing all the cowling so I can access the clock spring to change that. So the only fault code is for the driver's side lock carrier, so I'd assume that's the crash sensor, which is underneath the floor on the right hand side. So I'm going to order one of those, see if that'll cue the fault. So that is the only fault code left on the car for the airbag. So I've ordered one of those sensors. That is the crash sensor, which is in the side of the floor down here. Yeah, so I found this connector just tucked underneath here. I only just caught it as I put it on the ramp and just caught it with a glance at the corner of my eye and found out, oh, yellow connector. The only things that are normally yellow on cars are airbag connectors. So I did a little bit of research and Googling on the internet and eventually found out it was this sensor here. So let's get this sensor fitted. Now I don't know where this sensor actually goes because I've searched everywhere and I can't find a spot where you've got that little indentation and then room for a bolt to go through it. So I'm going to have another hunt for that later on. So now let's get that airbag code reset. So there is the fault code for the airbag, which is still there. Let's clear the fault code. Read fault code. There you go, no fault codes for the airbag anymore. So let's start it and see if the code's gone. There we go, all sorted. Now I'm just going to check to see if these rear wheels are buckled, but as you can see by the rear tyre, that's why you crashed. Right, let's balance this wheel up now and see if it's buckled. We might get away with that because I've left the old weights on there. It's not probably going to be weighted anyway. So by the time we put some fresh weights on that and a new tyre, I think we might get away with that one. Let's try the other one and see if that's buckled. Now just watch the wheel going round here and watch it bounce round. Tony says it needs that much to balance it, which I think is going to be a lie. So I think that one is well and truly buckled. I will take it to an alloy wheel place, see if we can get it rounded again, but I don't hold much hope, so that'll be another 650 in the kitty for the Porsche. Surprisingly enough, the rear tyre has tons of tread left on it, but would you want to use it after it's had such a big impact? I don't think I would. And more bad news, guys. I took this wheel to see if we could sort out the flat spot on it. But the flat spot actually goes all the way across the wheel to about here. Now the guy has actually pushed some of it out to try and fix it, but unfortunately it just isn't round anymore, so I've had to order another wheel. New wheel is here. It has already been checked for buckles and it is perfectly round. There's just a small bit of damage on it here and a little bit here, but I'll be getting all four wheels refurbished anyway. So now I just need to decide on what tyres I'm going to buy. So I've decided to test the brakes out. I've bled the rear ones perfectly fine. There was no air in those. This front one, this had a thread come out of it and somebody attempted to tighten it up and it was just spinning, so fluid was still leaking out of it. I actually found a load of fluid around the alloy wheel. So I ended up going up to a brake refurbishing company up in Nottingham, BCS I think they're called, and they put a new bleed nipple in it for it and a new thread for 75 quid, which I didn't think was too bad considering a used caliper is around £375. Pedal stays hard. It's a little bit spongy, but it stays in that position now. It doesn't sink to the floor. So I think we've sorted the brakes problem. I will most definitely bleed them again before it goes back on the road. See if we can get that little bit of, there's about 2 centimetres of play in the brake pedal. Don't know whether that's normal or not, but fingers crossed. That's the brake sorted. Woohoo! So let's do some totals now on the amount of spent, because it is actually getting quite high. If you remember from the first episode, I spent £23,250 on the car itself. I then spent £120 on the seat belts. One of the AC pipes was £240. The main AC pipe, which I fitted today, was £360. The rear spoiler was £270. The two indicators were £120. The track rod end, which I'm still to fit, is £150. The shock absorber, which wasn't too bad, was £360. I bought the wheel hub, which was £450. The clips for the coolant were £3. The clock spring for behind the steering wheel was £360. I bought a steering wheel, that was £600. That was the most expensive part so far. Another alloy wheel, which is £400. The airbag sensor, which I've just fitted, was £83. And finally was the wing support, which holds the wing in. That was £80. So the total of parts spent so far is a whopping £3,416, and it still looks exactly the same as when I first purchased it. So there we go. So the total spent so far is £26,666. Now I have been looking out there on Auto Trader, and for me to get an undamaged car with roughly the same spec and mileage, you're looking about £45,000. So between the two, it's looking okay, but as it's a category S, I think you're probably looking about a realistic value of it being around £35,000 if I'm lucky, because it's got a good spec and I am going to repair it to a very good standard. So there we go, that's how much I spent so far. You let me know in the comments below whether you think it's worth it or not. We're back with the Porsche again today. I'm going to be fitting the shocker and hopefully the rear arm as well to get all the mechanicals done on the car. But I have found out something good, so join me in a second and we can see if it is the case. So if you remember in the last video, this brand new hub arrived, and I started to look over the car looking at how to fit it, and I noticed something. You see the hub on this side, it's all sort of dark, dirty and grey. The hub on this side is a lot lighter. So what I'm thinking's happened is whoever has partially repaired this before has changed that rear hub already for another used one, because the colours are different. It's like that was off a much lower mileage car, and the other side is sort of about right for a 45,000 mile car. So I'm just going to change the shocker and the arm and see how straight it all is then, and hopefully I can get my money back, or at least buy some more parts instead of having that hub. So I should hopefully save myself 460 quid, which would be nice. So let's get cracking on with this. I've got to remove this trim cover here to reveal 4 bolts underneath it, or 3 bolts, and then we've just got a few to undo under here, and then it can all come off. So under here we've got 1 bolt holding the strut on, and then 1 bolt down the back here holding this arm on, and another one here. Now let's just put these two side by side so you can see the difference. Look how bent that is at the top there. Right, what I've got to do now is undo the anti-roll bar links and a few other bits, so I can then lower the suspension down and pull the other one out. Trying to figure out here whether it's possible to actually get the shocker out without lowering the hub all the way down, but unfortunately the shocker is just way too long to get it out. A little bit stuck here as well. This drive shaft does not want to free from the hub, and I don't want to hit it too hard because I'll damage the drive shaft. So the drive shaft didn't want to come out the hub. Rather than wrecking the splines, keep hammering it, I've just disconnected it from the other side of the drive shaft by the gearbox instead. So that is now all out. So let's just knock that shocker out and get it replaced and then back together. Right, just hammered the shocker out of the hub. Didn't take too much to get that out. But here's the shocker. Can you see how much that bends? So good job of changing that. Going to clean out the hub to make it easier for it to take the shocker. I'm going to do a little bit of sandpaper in there as well, but it looks okay. Looks fairly clean. I have also greased the end of the shocker to help it slide in easier. I put the old spring and shocker in my compressor to undo it, but I didn't need it to put the new one on, which was quite surprising. That was rather a struggle to get back on because of the weight of it. It was really difficult to find the 3 holes to put the suspension in up there, and also the holes for the 3 nuts are different lengths, so you had to make sure it was the right way around. First of all, it wasn't, so I've had to swap it around and get it on. So all I've got to do is pretty much bolt everything back up now, so let me get on with it. There we go, all done. Let's get the wheel back on, down on the ground, and let's see if it lines up a little bit better. As I was putting it back together, I was thinking, oh, this brake disc's moving a little bit. I'll be okay when I put the wheel on. And it seems that trying to get the drive shaft out with the light hammer has actually brought a fault up with the wheel bearing. So I'm going to have to get a new wheel bearing, but at least we can still check and see how much straighter the wheel is. There we go, that is loads better. He's perfectly straight now. Yes, the wheel alignment's going to be totally out because I've pulled everything off, but at least that's another one fixed. Yes, I've created another one, but if I'd have fitted that other hub, I'd have had to have bought a wheel bearing for it anyway. So at least this way, I can hopefully send that hub back and get credit or a refund. Well, no point having a refund because it's all going to go to other parts. But yeah, technically that's 300 and 460 pounds I can hopefully get back to put towards other bits. So yeah, unfortunately I've created another problem, but that's what happens with fixing cars. I would imagine that that was probably weak already, and just giving it a tap with a hammer has just made it separate. As the drive shaft has seized inside the wheel bearing could have been going for a while anyway, and that's why the drive shaft seized into it. So it's all got to come off again. Porsche, again this week, we are getting close to needing paint work done to it. It is hopefully booked in tomorrow to go for paint. So I need to strip the door down, strip the rear bumper off, take the last rear light off, and do a few other little jobs to get it ready for paint, and then we can wave goodbye to it for a few weeks while it gets its prettiness restored. So I've already taken this light out, dead easy to do, just a screw in the back of it inside the boot, and then you just need to prise the light out with a few pry bars, and out it will eventually come. Remove this grommet here, and then you can see the little screw we've got to undo behind it. Now, as you can see from this removed headlight, there's 2 sliding sort of pins which it attaches to here, and there's a rubber grommet at the back which it pushes into, so you need to release it from that rubber grommet in order to get it out. I mean, I suppose you could push from behind, but you don't really have many access points. So what I'm going to be doing is using these pry tools to pull the headlight out that way. What I'd normally do as well is put some tape around the paintwork, but as this is all being repainted, I haven't done so. And there we go. So now let's get this rear bumper off. I can see there's a couple of torques here. There's going to be some along the rear arch and there's going to be some along the bottom of the bumper. So let's try and find them and get the bumper off. What's happened here is the dent is stopping me from accessing the bolt at the back because it pushed everything over. Yay, finally got it. Looking at it around here, the bumper goes underneath the spoiler, so I think it's best to remove the spoiler so I can access all the bolts underneath. Quite straightforward to do, to be honest. I thought it might be a bit more difficult than that. There we go, bumper off. I was actually expecting that bumper to fall on me then, so managed to catch it. So I've got to strip a few bits off this now and we'll be ready for paint on this part then. Right, we've got the two indicators to remove. We've got several little bolts underneath to undo to get the rest of the spoiler cap off, and another one here to remove the light, and then we've got this valance at the bottom to pull out. Just come to remove the other light and I was like, where's the wiring loom for it gone? I don't want to have to buy a wiring loom. And then I realised it's just a reflector, it's not a real light, so emergency over and dealt with. Always put the bolts back in where possible so you know where they are. Bumper is now all off, and I might as well show you the damage. See, there's a little bit of deformation down here, which should hopefully be able to be pushed out with a little bit of heat. A little bit of damage here, and a little bit of damage here. And one other thing that needs repairing, if you remember rightly in another video, the bumper wasn't fitting right because this has been pushed up here and damaged slightly. So what I'm going to try and do, if I can get my lighter to work, is heat that up and then push it back down. Almost forgot, I need to check for damage at the rear here. Small little bit of impact here. You can see how small that hole is there, and that one's just a little bit larger. It's been pushed in ever so slightly. Back panel is all in line. It's just the exhaust unfortunately has been damaged, but I'm unsure on what I'm going to do about that yet. Whether I'm going to get a new exhaust or take it off and try and straighten it out. We shall see. So for transportation purposes, let's get this rear bumper back on. And now it's on to removing the parts off this door. Now, it's something I've never done before. I have watched a YouTube video, so I've got a little bit of an idea on how to do it. So fingers crossed, it's not too difficult. I'm going to start by removing this wire here. Right, what I'm doing now is removing the door handle. I've got one torque screw here and then another one up the back there. If you can see that on there, look. Going to remove those now. There we go, that was quite easy. There's just two of these bolts to undo. And then inside here, there's just a little latch on top that you just need to just push up with a screwdriver and out it pops. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new to the channel, because all I put out are no nonsense, interesting videos about Alfas, Fiats and other makes of cars. So hit that subscribe button and that bell icon so I can increase my viewing. Thank you. Finally, she's all stripped down and she can now get loaded on the trailer and go off for paint. I'm hoping it's going to take about a week, maybe 2 weeks for the bodywork. So we'll see what happens. So it's now the next day. We're all loaded up. Let's just quickly go over the bodywork and show you what is going to be repaired. So one of the few panels that doesn't need painting on the car is the boot lid, and that is in perfect condition. We are going to have the rear bumper repainted. There's a few little sort of dimples down there. They're going to have to be worked out. There's the corner of the bumper here where it is protruding up where it's been pulled. That's going to have to be sorted out as well. This little bit of damage here, which is going to get sorted out. So you see it's pushed it in, it's pushed it up and out and over and in all different sorts of directions, so it looks absolutely terrible at the minute. We've got the little bit of damage to the A-pillar here. That is going to get pulled out as well and be like new. The bonnet is going to have this dink taken out of it, but I think it's going to be a case of painting the whole thing. The wing here will need straightening out. We've got some dents here and it's all going to have to be lined up and sorted out. And the final part, and probably the most difficult one, is to pull all the metal out here, because it's quite thick and it's also like triple skinned, so it's not the easiest to pull out. So now guys, I managed to get a few spare hours to spend it at the body shop, so I managed to film quite a bit of the work being done on it. Just cleaning up the metal to get it as clean as possible so we can start pulling the dents. Now this cracking little tool here just welds a little spot so we can start yanking on the panel to get the dents out. And before I arrived, he'd got some of the work done, worked out a few of the dents and filled and sanded a few areas. Today we have the Porsche behind me. It's all back from paint and I now need to start rebuilding it, popping all the stuff on, having a look at what's left that needs to be purchased and ordered, and we also need to go through a total of how much I've spent so far, which is quite a lot. Rebuilding the bumpers was fairly straightforward. The rear one was the easier one of the two. The annoying thing about the rear bumper was all the clips holding everything together. And as you can see, I just popped a little bit of masking tape up there so I didn't scratch the paintwork. I think I must have been rolling on the floor in the clothes I'm wearing there. They are rather dirty. Now, I decided to fit these grills. Shortly after I had the wheels refurbished, I decided they looked wrong. So I've taken them off again and sent them off to be painted gloss black. Hopefully that'll make the car look a little bit more matching. Yeah, I have got to mess with the door fitment there because if you can see, it does sort of poke out a little bit from the rear quarter panel. I have heard someone say at Porsche the sign of a good accident repair is when the fuel cap matches all the way around on these Porsches. Quick look inside the sill, as you can see that's all been repainted in there, so it's all nice and bright, shiny agate grey. And another problem we've had today, the original Porsche battery gave up. It went flat on me and wouldn't recharge. So got a lovely Yuasa battery fitted in its replacement. That cost me £150, but that should be good for at least another 5 years. So good news, guys. The last of what I think are the parts have arrived. We have had a credit for that wheel hubber sent back. So what's in the box? We've got fixing clips. We've got the front surround for the front bumper radar. There for like coolant pipes and things from underneath the car. We've got the adhesive for the badge. We've got the little clips which hold the badge in. We've got the side skirt fitting clips. I think that's a bumper mount. And the same on that side. And finally we have an oil filter, an oil filter O-ring and some spark plugs. Still got plenty of parts to fit as well. That's an underbody cover for the driver's side. Got the engine cover, brand new from Porsche. Got a brand new arch liner. I've got two of them in fact. And I've also got one of the interior grills, which the top half was missing. So of course you can't buy the top half on its own. So I've had to buy the whole thing, a used one. And in my box, I've got, that's a spare part, I don't need that. Got a brand new Porsche badge to go on the front. And believe it or not, apparently these are all handmade and painted. That's why they're so damn expensive. Brand new 718 badge, brand new S badge, whatever that is, there it is there. And a brand new Boxster badge to go on the back. So that is pretty much everything we need now, apart from the bumper to side skirt clip, which is missing, but that's going to be sent next week. So pretty good stuff. I'll get those done for the next episode. Now I did take the wheels to be refurbished in the original satin colour, but unfortunately the colour match was really bad. So as a second option, I decided to have them painted gloss black instead. One thing I forgot to mention in another video was the front screen. I've had that fitted and that cost me £1,260, so that has properly broken the piggy bank on that one. There's two things on the rear end that I'm not happy with. One is the rear valance, because it still has these marks in the back of them. And the exhaust, which is bent and looks really old and crappy, so at some point further down the line I'm going to be getting a new exhaust and a rear valance to go on there. This side of the car is perfectly fine, no issues at all. We just need to get the clips which hold the side skirt on and get everything buttoned up in there right. Wing alignment on this side is absolutely bang on. The bonnet wing adjustment is actually pretty good. Headlight adjustment isn't the best at the minute because I think the wing's sitting a little bit too high, so I need to lower that down to get the headlight to fit in that much better. Bits I've got to sort out is this door gap here. As you can see, it's not quite right. I've also got to wait for the clip to arrive to attach the side skirt to the wing correctly, as well as the front bumper support. It was totally missing on this wing and I didn't even realise until I went to fit the wing. Headlight adjustment could be that little bit better. As you can see, it's not quite as far back as I want it to be, but as you can tell, it is still quite loose. And the bonnet gap at the top of the driver's wing is still a little bit too large, so I need to see what adjustment there is in the bonnet. You can see the big dent on the rear quarter is now gone. Nice little shot of the Michelin Pilot S4s. So the total spend so far is £26,666. So how much more have I spent this month? Well, I've spent £83 on an air intake, new battery £150. The windscreen was £1,260. The wheel refurbishment was £280. Didn't think that was a bad price considering I've had 4 new tyres fitted, balanced as well. The new tyres cost £1,060, the most I've ever spent on tyres for a car. The paintwork, which was the big one, was £3,500. The under tray, arch liners and badges came to £790, and all the trims, clips and fixings came to £166, bringing the grand total to £7,009. Bringing the grand total to £33,675. Now, I'm still sort of £1,500 under where I wanted my budget to be, and I do still have to spend some money at this Porsche specialist at the end of the month, so it's getting very tight on my budget, so fingers crossed there isn't much else wrong with the car. But you've got to admit, even in its unfinished state now, it does look damn sexy. So what's going to be going on in the next episode, I'm going to need to button up all these last few fixings and fittings problems, get everything lined up, and then it's going to be MOT time. But before that, I need to get it to a Porsche specialist, which I've booked it in for the end of May. I'm going to be taking it down to a Porsche specialist in Redditch, I think it is, to get the steering wheel coded in. I'm going to have the four-wheel alignment done. I need to have the air conditioning regassed. And many other things as well. I've got a few more issues on the dashboard that I need them to have a look at that I can't clear, and it doesn't really give me the proper fault on the internet when you look at the fault code. So I'm going to get them to have a look at it and fix a few things which are just beyond me, as I thought there would be, because my software on that computer I use, you know, it's pretty good, but it can't do everything. Mainly it can't recode steering wheels and things like that. So it's another bill, but I have budgeted for a little bit of other people to fix some of the mechanicals I couldn't do. So the project is coming to an end almost. I'm going to say we'll do one more episode on it. We'll have the big reveal and hopefully a nice long test drive in it when it comes back from having these last few bits sorted. Unfortunately, I found another problem which has cost me big. So if you remember at the end of the last episode, the Porsche was nearly finished. I was just waiting for a few more parts to arrive, and then it was going to have a few bits done at a Porsche specialist. Well, we're now getting on for 6 weeks later. The car went to the Porsche specialist. Had those bits done on it, spent another 1,500 quid on that, which wasn't fun. So when I got the car back, I was getting a headlight problem, which I thought might be down to the fact that the windscreen was fitted and the camera hadn't been set up. So another £150 for that, and it was still doing it. So I got it back to the unit, sat on it for a bit. Here's the codes that I was getting, and I was like, it's got to be a ballast, or it's got to be a bulb or something like that. So I had a look on the Porsche app where it shows you the exact spec of your car, and I noticed when I looked into it, I'll show you the picture of it now, the headlights are different to what's on the car. So, and then I looked under the actual options list on the car, because you get to see that on the app, and it's got PDSL, Porsche Dynamic Lighting System Plus, and I was like, those aren't those headlights after a little bit of research. So spoke to my friend at Swindon Porsche, and he confirmed that it should have PDSL Plus fitted. So it's got the wrong headlights fitted to it, and you know how expensive Porsche headlights are. So spent a bit of time scouring, trying to find some good condition used ones with all the parts on them, and that came with a big fat zero. So again, spoke to Porsche. Oh yes sir, they're £2,000 each. Okay, so I was like, there's some slightly usable ones on eBay for £1,000 or £1,500, so it was saving a bit of money. And then I asked the Porsche dealer, well, that £2,000, does that include all the ECUs and everything to control the headlights, which are bolted to the headlights? No, it's a bare headlight. So I have had a absolutely massive bill to buy 2 new headlights. Luckily, I've managed to find the ECUs and motors and stuff and fans used on eBay, so I've pretty much spent another £3,900 on 2 headlights and some screws and some covers to attach to them, and then another £400 for the ECUs and gubbins. So I've totally blown the budget now. It's way over budget, but who cares? I've driven it for a few miles off camera and I absolutely love it. So in my eyes, it's worth spending this money on this car, but what are you going to do? It's part and parcel of taking on a car which has been part repaired. If this car had come to me without headlights in its original probable accident damaged form, I'd have had to buy them anyway. I would have just known about it, so I'd have probably paid less for the car. So Mr. Porsche man has just delivered 2 very expensive packages to me. I've already stripped the car ready to take them. I've also been messing around with the alignment a little bit because I wasn't happy with how the bonnet was aligned, and I finally figured out how to align the bonnet. I've also made sure the wing is all now perfectly in line. The gaps down the bonnet are perfect, and the wing down here is also perfect. One other little problem I found, luckily, when I've taken the car apart is, as I thought when I was putting it together, one of those pipes is leaking there, so I've ordered a new pipe and I'm going to be fitting that before I put the arch liners back on again. So pretty much it's ready to go back together again now. I can then get an MOT on the car and get out on the road and show you what a fun toy this is going to be. But first of all, I need to get these headlights out of the box and put them all together. Now, let's be super delicate with this. Actually, I can probably tear that with my hands. And there we have a super weighty, super expensive headlight. Right, so here is my makeshift workbench while I rebuild these lights. And I'm building them as close to the floor as possible so nothing gets dropped and broken. That goes that way around. These ECUs are actually from a GT4 RS, so I can actually say I've got a bit of a supercar part fitted to mine now. So in these headlights extra, you have got 2 ECUs and a cooling fan. The cooling fan from Porsche was about £150 each, but it's exactly the same part number for a Mercedes, and I think I paid about £45 each for those. So that was a little bit of a saving after losing all this money on the headlights.
Yeah, having a big email conversation with the guy at Porsche, and it did actually state in the diagram that these backs don't come with the headlight, and they do, but they have like a £30 return limit, so I bet I can't send those back to back. That'll be £30 down the drain, unfortunately. So we've got one headlight done and ready to go back in. Just so you can see, that is the difference in the headlights. They are totally different. I also think I'm going to strip the other one down before I put it in, but as the back was already on, I think these fans are already going to be on there. So when I open the next headlight in a minute, I'm going to take the back off and see if they're in there. No, unfortunately Porsche didn't put the fans in, so I did have to fit those. It would have been nice as being as they put the back on, just to have fitted the fans with them as well. They're in. I just need to faff around with all the alignment now. Join me in a minute when hopefully we have 2 permanently fitted headlights. So there we go, they're all in. All fitting nicely. I'm going to quickly pop the bumper on, just rest it in place so I can plug all the connectors in, otherwise it's going to throw more wobblies, and then see if the code will clear. So fingers crossed, it's £4,500 well spent. So the big test, are we going to get an error message when we turn the headlights on? My biggest worry was that I'd spent £4,500 to not fix a problem, but I can relax now, I can unclench my buttocks. Why do they cost so much money? Well, these are the fancy ones that turn when you go around corners. It's like a stupid £2,000 option or something like that, or £1,500 option. I'll have to have another look. But oh, I'm so glad that it is sorted. So we've still got the fault codes on the system at the minute. Let's just take them away, clear the fault codes. All completed. No DDCs. And I can operate the lights and they all work with no errors on the dashboard. Now it's time to sort out this coolant leak. Fingers crossed it comes off. So unfortunately that pipe appears to have welded itself to it. So I've had to take a whole pipe off. Unfortunately, that meant dropping the subframe, undoing the power steering motor, undoing the anti-roll bar link, just so I could get it out. And it was a pain in the backside, to be honest. So I'm now waiting for another coolant pipe to come. So it's going to be a few days later, and hopefully cue to me fitting a brand new cooling pipe. New pipes have just arrived. I'm going to get these fitted off camera because it's dark, it's tight, and there's nothing really for me to film down there. So join me in a few seconds when, fingers crossed, it's all back up and running again. So the final job to do is just add some coolant, and then we can finally go off and drive it. But finally, after 6 months hard work, the vehicle is finally back on the road and I can now start to enjoy it. So let's go and take it for a spin. And I thought the Porsche videos were over, but I do have one more for you. I've managed to get my hands on a Milltec Performance unsilenced exhaust. So in this video, I'm going to attempt to get the old rusty one off and fit that Milltec unit. So join me in this video and we'll try and make this Porsche sound one hell of a lot better. So here's the exhaust. It's an unsilenced Milltec system. It is used, but the car it was fitted to before, it was only fitted to it for 6 months. So my joy of fitting this, thank you to the guy who I bought it off for delivering it to me. It's saved me a lot of hassle of a 6-hour round trip to go and collect it. So it shouldn't really take more than, what, half an hour to get this exhaust off. So let's get cracking with it and see whether we can get it off super fast. Let's start by getting the wheels off to access the exhaust at the side. And the exhausts are really the last part of the puzzle, because if you look at the tailpipe, they're extremely bent, they're out of shape, they're crushed. So I'm very happy to be replacing these at long last. And first obstacle straight away is look how rusty those nuts are. They are not going to come off easily at all. And that just span straight away. And that just span straight away. Let's try an 11mm. Oh, there we go, we got a bit of purchase now. But it ain't going anywhere. It's just going to snap, I bet you. Now we're just going round and round now. Oh, there we go. Oh no, it snapped. I mean, this is a 5-year-old car, and if you can see down there, that nut has literally rusted away. So there's nothing left on that one for me to take off. Well, it would appear famous last words, it'll only take me half an hour. Those 4 bolts were a pain in the backside. I've managed to Dremel 3, one had come off because it snapped. 2 I managed to Dremel off, and the 3rd one I'm attempting to Dremel off still. We're almost there with it, but I'm going to try and move the exhaust down a bit to see if it'll give me a bit more room. So I've got one more bolt to do up here, and then fingers crossed it will come undone. So now, hopefully, it'll give me a bit more flex to get that other one to snap off, hopefully. Oh, look, it's giving way. I think it, anyway. Yep. So it's finally given way. Now I just need to jack it up a bit so I can lift it out. Right, so I've now got the exhaust all together off the car. It seems like that's the logical way to put it back together, is all in one piece. So I'm just going to get it up now, and then I can start lining it up. Right guys, now the next morning, I ran out of time yesterday to finish buttoning things up, so I've just done the 2 screws at the back, either side, and now I'm just going to do these mounts here, and then we can finally do the last bit of alignment here. all done. So let's get it down, start it up, and then let it warm up, and then we give it a rev and see if it sounds any better. That actually sounds pretty good. I wasn't expecting any more crackles and bangs, but I do seem to be getting more. It's about 20-30% louder, so not a tremendous amount louder, which is surprising as well. But we'll get it out on the road now and see how it sounds from inside. So as you can hear, the sound in sport mode is like 70 miles an hour. Isn't actually too loud. It is a lot louder than standard, but it's not at a decibel where it would hurt your ears or anything like that. It's perfectly acceptable to drive at motorway speeds with the Miltech exhaust on. So let's switch it back to normal now. Doing 55 miles an hour, and as you can hear, the exhaust goes a lot quieter. That's accelerating in standard mode. And it is a lot louder than the standard exhaust. It does take away a lot of the engine sound, and it takes away the induction sound, and it also takes away a lot of the road noise you get depending on what tyres you're using. So if you don't mind exhaust noise, it's a perfectly fine exhaust to have. If you don't want a loud exhaust, don't get this one because it is a lot louder than standard. But for the price, it is, I think, around £1,300 standard, brand new. So we are now 12 months later. The car has been on the road for just over 6 months. Thoroughly enjoyed it. So I thought I'd end the video of me talking about what I think of it, what I like, what I don't like, what I think they could improve on, and problems I've had, and just general ownership queries, really. Problems. I've not had any mechanical problems, no error warning lights on the dash. It has behaved perfectly like that. Two little things that do need changing on it. The door stay on the driver's side is a little bit noisy when you open and close the door. They're about £80 from Porsche, so I need to order one of those and get that done. And the only other problem I have is I'm getting some wishbone suspension noise when I go over rough bumps or I turn really heavily, and it's just some wishbones. But unfortunately, every time I try and order them from Design 911, the TRW branded ones, they are coming into stock on this date, and then the date passes and then it goes onto back order again, and that's happened to me twice now. So I'm still waiting for these parts to come. They have £230 of my money, and I'm still waiting for parts. But hopefully the TRW branded ones will be a little bit better than the Porsche ones, because after doing a bit of research, the quality of the wishbone on the Porsche branded ones are not the best. I think this car's only done what now? They just under 49,000 miles. And it needs pretty much all 8 suspension wishbones changing on the car, so that is a little bit annoying. I would expect more life out of that, but as the car has been off-roaded when it was crashed, it's probably understandable why the wishbones have gone. So that's going to be another expense I don't want to have to pay. Things I love about the car, which is pretty much everything. I can't complain about the way it looks, the way it drives, the way it handles. The interior is sharp, well put together, no rattles whatsoever, apart from the passenger seat belt, but I do have a cure for that. And overall, you know, I love everything about it. Practicality wise, it's me, the wife, and 11-year-old. All the other kids have grown up, flew the nest now, so practicalities wise, it does work, apart from when we want to go out somewhere nice on a weekend and the lad doesn't want to play his Xbox and he wants to come out with us, so then we have to go in one of the other cars we've got. We don't struggle for space inside the car. There is plenty of room. When we go for our weekly shop, we can get it all in the frunk. The boot is smaller than the frunk, so normally I'll put like the shopping bags and stuff in there during the week, and they live in the back of the car, and I very rarely actually go into the back of the car. Everything else, practicalities wise, all the instrumentation is pretty easy to get to. Because of the gear stick, it is a little bit awkward to reach some of the, like the rear heat screen button, the recirculation button, and the heated screen button. But other than that, no, everything on the inside is easy to get to, easy to do whatever you need to do with. Upgrades, other than the exhaust, which you saw me fit earlier, the only other thing I've done to it is install one of these CarPlay boxes. Best thing you can do, really. I know there's ways you can upgrade the software and stuff like that. I need to get it, but for the sake of 50 to 100 quid, buy one of these. They're absolutely great. Future plans for upgrades, possibly a remap on the cards, but I find the 350 horsepower is sufficient in this car, so that will probably never happen. The only upgrades I'll be doing are changing the wishbones. Ownership and the negatives of being a Porsche owner, as people have a certain idea of what a Porsche driver is like. I haven't had any negativity towards the car when I've been driving by anybody. I've had the reverse, actually. I've found that people absolutely love it. I've seen kids pointing at it as we're driving along. I've been parked in car parks with the window down and I hear people walk past it, oh, that's a nice car. And it's actually quite nice because I wasn't expecting it. So, yeah, it's not one of the reasons you buy a Porsche, but surprise, surprise, it actually has a good opinion from the public. So, am I going to be keeping it? I still find myself looking at other cars. Because I enjoyed rebuilding this so much, I want to do it again, but with something else. I've got a few ideas of what I want to do, but if I keep this, I don't have the funds to do it. But I do like this so much that for the foreseeable future, I'm going to be keeping this at least for a couple of summers anyway. Get this summer out of the way and see how we go. But I do enjoy having this roof down. It's like what's the temperature today? It is 3 degrees. And I'm sitting here with the roof down and I'm not cold, which is nice. So I do have it down quite often. I didn't deliberately have it down today to film. It's just that when I started filming, I was like, oh, it's really dark. So I've put the roof down. So I'm sitting here now and I'm not shivering. But generally, you're driving down the motorway at 70 miles an hour and you don't get much wind buffeting. The wife can happily sit there with the sunglasses on and a hat on, and her hair doesn't get blown everywhere because they've got the wind deflector in the back. Things I don't particularly like about the car, there aren't very many. The biggest one for me is the automatic gearbox. Generally, it is perfectly fine, but when you're in normal D mode, the standard mode it gets into every time you start the car, Sometimes when you put your foot down, there's a little bit too much lag, and it's just a little bit, and then it gets a bit too jerky because the power automatic just whams itself up your backside. So driving it generally, if I'm going a little bit faster or on a spirited drive, I will stick it into S and slip it over into manual mode, just so I can change gears when I want to, because as soon as you stick it into any sporty driving mode, it wants to hold onto the gears for ages, especially in Sport Plus. It'll hold it until like 6,000 RPM before it changes gear. And when you're driving on the roads, you're not on a track, you just want to change gear yourself, and it's not difficult using the paddles. I don't ever pull it up and down. So when you're in manual mode, it is very easy just to move the paddle shifters on the back. It would be nicer if they're a little bit longer. You can get the extensions for it, so that might be a mod I do in the future. But generally, driving around, that is my only negative thing, is because of normal mode. It's a little bit unregulated when it comes to delivering power. So would I repair an accident damaged car again, one that I don't know anything about? Yes, I'm mechanically minded, but when you don't understand how things go back together, how and what diagnostic software you need, how much parts cost, it was quite a worrying idea for me to think, oh, I'm going to buy a really expensive car which I can't drive because it's crashed. But when this came along, I was like, oh, it's partially repaired, it's got all the panels on it, it's got all the lights on it, that's going to save me some money. No, it didn't. It's actually probably cost me more money, because I thought it came with stuff that was okay. The lights were wrong, so that was over £4,000. I've subsequently found out, being on the road, it's got auto folding mirrors, but they don't work because the mirror fitted on the driver's side, which was a crashed one, hasn't got an auto folding mirror fitted, and they're like 600 quid used. So another expensive bill still to get this car working 100%, and I think that's the last part to do now. So would I repair an accident damaged car again? Yes, I would, because I enjoy doing it so much. My top tips for you buying an electric car. So my top tips for you buying a damaged car are, if you're buying it off Copart, be very, very, very careful of hidden damage which has been deliberately hidden by certain employees at Copart, because they are paid a little bit extra to touch it up and make it look nice. Normally it's like airbags have been pushed back in, or a certain angled shot so you can't see the seat airbags gone off. What I would recommend you do is pay for a video walk around, so then you can ask them to start the car, you can look in every direction you want, and that would save you, or give you more of an idea of how much you need to spend on it. Tip number 2, do your research. I did as much as I possibly could, staring at the photos, zooming on the photos, looking at the videos several times, trying to work out what parts were needed. It gives you more of an idea of, you're not going into it as blind, and at least then you can do a little bit of research on the internet, what parts you can buy used, what you're going to have to buy new. And my third tip is, don't trust that used parts are the cheapest parts, especially with Porsche. I only bought the front bumper used and an alloy wheel. Everything else I could get cheaper, brand new, from Porsche. Yes, I did get a little bit of a discount because I knew somebody who worked in the part departments, which I thank you very much for that, Simon. But yeah, most of the parts that were, for example, on eBay were 20 to 30% more expensive than they were brand new from Porsche. And it's just ridiculous what they try and charge people for a used part, because people automatically think, I'm guilty of it in the past, of just going onto eBay, searching for the part, buying the cheapest one, when a quick phone call to the dealer was like, oh yeah, this is 40-50 pounds cheaper than this one listed on eBay. And when you're buying £5,000-6,000 pounds worth of parts, that does add up. And my fourth tip is the biggest one. This is probably the last one because I can't think of any more. Is don't buy a vehicle that somebody's already started to repair, because you don't know what they've done with it. You don't know what damage is hidden behind the damage they've done. You don't know whether the parts they've put on it are right, like £4,500 headlights. So yeah, my biggest tip to you is, if you see one you think it's a good deal, it's not. Walk away from it, don't buy it. So that's it. That's what I think of my Porsche. Unfortunately, I haven't got a chance to drive it because the weather is pants. Luckily, I've picked 10 minutes when it's not raining, and the car is absolutely filthy, so there's no point me doing a fancy video with loads of fancy shots. Plus, I'm filming on my own today, so I don't have anybody to do any fancy shots as we're driving along. So thanks for watching. Hopefully you will like, share and subscribe the video, and I'll see you in the next one. And another slightly annoying thing about Porsche ownership, forgive the mount bouncing up and down, it's not my normal phone mount, is engine noise. Because it's a Boxster engine and it sort of punches its way around, as you're driving along at 30-40 miles an hour, it sounds a little bit like you've got a wheel bearing on. And I'm forever thinking to myself, have I got a wheel bearing on? And no, it's just the sound of the engine behind you.